Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project. Are you ready?
All right, friends, and welcome to the Eric McKenna Project, show number 10. And my guest today, yes, indeed, Jennifer Ferris-Glick with Illume Pittsburgh, a wellness studio. See, pretty good, huh? Not bad. And we're going to talk some holistic healing and a whole bunch of other things today that I really am fascinated about, but have very little knowledge, so I'm going to be learning along with everybody else. And thank you, and welcome to the Boogie Street Studio. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the time and effort.
Well, thank you for making it. And right off the bat, I'm just going to ask you point blank, what is Illume Pittsburgh?
It's a great question.
It is.
So we've coined ourselves as an integration studio, but really what we do is we focus on athletic recovery, also providing an opportunity for people to take care of themselves. And we do that with the hopes that, the things that we provide, we do that with the hopes that you can come in feeling one way, not even realizing that you're maybe not feeling so super great, and leave feeling amazing. And it really only takes anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes to get that feeling.
Okay.
And so what we've done is we've taken a bunch of different things that we've coined modalities. They're different machines and different types of treatments and therapies, and we've put them under one roof. And all of the things that we have are supported by peer-reviewed scientific articles to kind of show their effectiveness and their efficacy. So we try to really provide people with things that we know work over long periods of time.
Okay. And from what I read, you have a background in all of this. Is it Bucknell?
Yeah, I did go to Bucknell, for grad school.
Yeah, there's a litany of fields of study there as well, psychology being one of them.
Yeah, so I actually started out, I'm local. I grew up sort of in the suburbs and on the other side of the city in Murraysville. Sort of. I have a really interesting upbringing, but so I started out there, went to Seton Hill for art therapy and psychology, and kind of decided that I wanted to go the route of science instead of sort of the touchy-feely stuff. And it's sort of funny because I ended up in the touchy-feely stuff anyway. Just goes to show you could deny something yourself all you want. Eventually it just comes full circle.
Right.
So yeah, I went to Bucknell and studied experimental psychology. I worked at Carnegie Mellon for 10 years as a cognitive neuroscience researcher and
cognitive
neuroscience
researcher.
Yeah,
That's above my pay grade.
Yeah, I studied mathematical learning over periods of time and did brain scans and all sorts of fun stuff.
Okay.
And then I was like, my husband and I opened another business, and so I left
and that
there.
Is?
The Dog Stop in Sewickley.
Yeah, I know firsthand of this place.
Do you go there?
Yes, yes, we do.
Oh, great.
We can talk about that later in the show.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I always joke that I'm creating an empire. So
nothing wrong with that.
So yeah. So I ended up leaving CMU whenever we opened the Dog Stop. And then, I just kind of never went back. And in that period of time, I had owned a yoga studio about a decade ago. I was a co-owner of a yoga studio, and that was a really great experience when we opened the Dog Stop. Again, I sort of backed down from that commitment. And then, a couple years later, where we are now downtown on Boulevard of the Allies, I was offered the 4th floor, and I opened a yoga and meditation studio because I had kept all of my private clients and some of my corporate clients, and it felt like I needed a space to hold those private sessions and stuff. I really it just needed a space. I was joking for years that I was going to start, I was going to create a tiny house or a yoga shed in my backyard and just have all my clients come through there, which maybe might have been smarter
a yoga
financially.
Shed. I've heard a lot of different kinds of sheds, but not a yoga shed.
A yoga shed.
You should coin that phrase and sell it. That's not a bad idea.
I should.
Yeah.
I should. A friend of mine, we joked about it for years.
Right.
That was our hashtag.
Yoga shed. Not bad.
We both ended up buying studios, by the way. But yeah, so I opened the 4th floor, and my vision for that and my previous yoga studio was that I always wanted it to be a a place where people can come and passively heal. You know, you go to a yoga class or a meditation class, and those are pretty active, like not just physically, but mentally demanding. I wanted to have a place where they could come and take care of themselves, and have it be completely complementary to the rest of their lives. So the final vision was kind of opening the first floor, and with Mike DeCosmo, we, you know, kind of crafted this this plan, for lack of a better term, and we, you know, opened the entire facility. So
it's a big step.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big step, I suppose, but I guess, I don't know. I guess if you ask the people around me, they're just sort of like, yeah, that's pretty much the way she rolls. Jump in at
Yeah,
first.
so no one was surprised then
No,
anyways. Yeah.
No, everyone was like, well, you must be doing really well. And I'm like, yeah, we're doing well.
Oh, well, you know what? Can we start with yoga?
Yeah,
because,
sure.
Because that's probably the only connectivity to probably what we're going to talk about
Sure,
that I have any
yeah.
knowledge of.
Yeah.
So there was a little timidity in me, so I never took yoga classes, but Rodney Yee.
Yeah, totally.
So I did I bought his books. I did I did it for about a year. Never felt better. And of course, like anything else in this world, we move away from the things that actually work.
Yeah.
Right. And then years prior, I was out with my daughter one day after school when I ran into him as he was in Pittsburgh doing
Yeah.
business with Dick's Sporting Goods or
Sure,
something.
yeah.
Nicest guy on the planet. I actually sat there and had soup with him and talked to him. Good guy. But anyways, yeah, that was my only experience in that. And I don't even know what form of yoga that was. Just I know there's so many disciplines.
Yeah,
and
I mean, I don't know what he would call himself. I mean, he pretty much, I think, does a pretty basic vinyasa type of thing.
Okay.
It's pretty flowy.
Okay.
A little, maybe leaning a little power, but I mean, he and his partner are both extremely knowledgeable, and they really have.
What was her name now? I can't remember.
No, I can't remember it either off the top of my head.
Yeah, it'll come to me.
But yeah, so a lot of people, I think, feel that way. A lot of people are intimidated by yoga because they look at it at what sort of like social media portrays, what regular media portrays. And I think a lot of times people think, oh, it's just like people contorting their bodies, when in fact the very essence of yoga is actually diving deeper into yourself and removing, or I guess sort of moving beyond illusions of like that we have in the world, like, you know, these material things are really worthwhile, or, you know, not to say that they don't serve a purpose, but, you know, they are not the end all be all. And the idea is to move past like any suffering that you create, because the idea is that you create your own suffering.
Yes, yes.
And so that's like kind of one level, right? And that's sort of like the meditative. And there's lots of styles, lots of lineages of yoga, but when you look at it from, you know, sort of like a higher level perspective, you know, that's kind of like the essence of it. That's what you get whenever you move through these postures. So you kind of, the idea is that you move your physical body, move the energy in your body to be able, and also learn how to train yourself in focus and in breathing and in concentration.
It was very difficult for me when I started, I can tell you.
Yeah, well, you know, it's difficult for everybody. I think the benefit to going to a class or doing private sessions is that somebody else gets to kind of hold that space and direct you, because they can kind of interact with you on that very physical level. Like, hey, I see you're kind of floating off to somewhere else. What are you thinking about? Let's talk about that.
The tape's not going to do that for you. The video on TV is not going to do that for you.
No, but you know what? You'll still get the same benefit. And you know, everybody needs an access point. And for a lot of people, that access point is DVDs. And actually, that was one of my access points too. Like when I was in grad school, I was so stressed out all the time, so anxious. I literally felt like I was like walking in this like world of in-between places. Like I wasn't like faculty, but I wasn't an undergrad. And so I was sort of like in this weird space. And so for me, like doing yoga and kind of practicing meditation was really, it was integral into me actually feeling like I was surviving mentally, you know?
Okay, that's pretty deep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know know that it's pretty deep. I think it's just like literally like I needed like that like 45 minutes, that hour and a half
yourself.
For myself.
Got it.
And if I dedicated that hour to myself or however much time, then I was actually able to like move a little bit. I could turn my brain off if I was like listening to the DVD. I could like breathe, like how often do we pay attention to our breath? And it's like the most important thing that we do.
Speak on that for a second, because that was such a difficult thing for me initially.
Yeah.
And then once I started to get it, that just changed my whole state.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
So powerful.
So if you are walking through the world with a contracted body, your breath automatically reflects that, right? So if you're uptight, you're anxious, your breath is likely shallow and fast. And the thing is that actually exacerbates that feeling of anxiety from a biological, physiological level. And in fact, the whole point of yoga and meditation is to train yourself to be aware of these things as they're happening, and to maybe even make predictions on when they will happen so that you can kind of pull yourself back. It's just like that idea of like, instead of reacting to something, you can skillfully respond to something. You just take a breath, you kind of take a moment, for those of us who have tempers, which may or may not be me.
You're probably a little more skilled at handling it than I am.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I've been doing this for a little while, so I don't know if I'm more skilled or not, but... Do
you think age helps that too a little bit?
Oh, totally. Like, in my 20s, in my early 30s, even in my teens, like, if I would have, it was very easy for me to react to something instead of trying to respond to something with some level of intelligence
or appropriateness, maybe.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, I always kind of use the term skillful engagement because it's like, you can interact in a way and still get your point across, but do it in a way that can maybe be received better than throwing a temper tantrum.
Yes, I'm just thinking of a multitude of things regarding my daily activities in real estate that would constantly be better served if I could take that moment and breathe.
Well, it sounds like you need to meditate, my friend.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So just back to the yoga, just so we can kind of encapsulate that a bit. Do you? This is, and if I sound,
it's okay. You can go ahead and sound however you sound. It's okay.
Awesome. Where has she
I'll
been?
Just hold that space.
Where has she been? Okay, so. Do you create your own blended style out of different disciplines? Is it? I can only relate it to maybe martial arts where they blend disciplines.
And actually, that's the exact way that you would look at it. The underlying like philosophy of yoga is all the same. It's all the same. It's based in these like Hindu texts from India. A lot of the postures are actually not really ancient postures. They're actually postures that were created when Imperial Britain had commandeered the troops of India.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
The sun salutations are actually a byproduct of like calisthenics training. But the thing is that there is basis in it in the scriptures, or in the texts, but they're not. It's not like what yoga is today, and especially yoga in the West. Like yoga here is it's very flashy. It's very, hey, look what I can do with my body, and there's merit to that, but there's also a lot of room for injury. My personal take on yoga is that there is, I guess, sort of like a safe way to do it. And I have a particular lineage that's been around for a long time, and I actually have like a guru, which sounds so weird for me to say, but I actually have a guru. He lives in Florida, and he came here I think he came here in the 60s, and he actually started Kripalu. So it's this huge retreat yoga meditation center that started out in Pennsylvania, now is in Massachusetts, and so that's kind of like my background. Now, over the years, since I have done my teacher training and sort of like dove into yoga, I have studied with a lot of other people. And so the way that I teach, the way that I personally teach is very much, I really like people to feel the stuff in their bodies, but I also really like people to hold postures for a little bit of time so that they can kind of let go the ego and the mind, the part of the mind that says like, no, you can't hold this. No, you can't do that. I think there's some real merit to that. And I also think it's great to kind of push people out of their comfort zone, but in a safe way. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we have at the studio, which is like one of my favorite things, is this yoga wall where we actually put straps in the wall. And if you've ever gone to a yoga class, it basically provides you with an assist. So say you're in a posture and, maybe you'd feel it better or more intensely, or it would feel a little deeper if you kind of pulled your hips back. And what this wall does is it actually provides that pressure. And I can kind of, I can lead people into feeling the sensations in their body differently using the wall.
Okay.
So it's pretty fun. You can also hang upside down. So that's always like a flashy thing.
That's
like
not bad for you.
Everyone's like, hey, yeah. It does work. It like works like an inversion table, but it's like a little more intense than an inversion table. So.
Okay. Now yoga is only a portion of what you do at Illume.
Yeah. So we do. Let's
talk about the pods.
Yeah,
because that's all that I did the research that I could do. A little bit confused because there was so much coming at me, which is awesome. But the pods were unusual to me.
Yeah. So
visually unusual.
So yeah, they are visually unusual. They're really flashy and cool looking, aren't they?
It's almost like a mid-70s science
Spaceship?
fiction, like something.
Like you're getting like frozen and sent out into outer space. Yes, that's exactly what I want you to think.
Sydney, what's his name? A movie he would have made in like 1971.
Yeah, sure. I guess the best place to kind of start about all of the stuff that we have on the first floor. So we have the fourth floor, which is yoga and meditation. We do a lot of workshops and teacher trainings and stuff like that.
Okay.
On the first floor is where all of like the healing modalities are currently, although...
Modalities.
Yeah, the modalities, I mean, we just call them modalities because there are so many different aspects to them. You can't really call them treatments, right? I mean, they are treatments, but it has a little too much of a medical feel.
Yeah, it's a medical
It just
word,
feels like a little, I don't know, it doesn't feel appropriate. Mm-hmm. So we just, there are these different modes of healing, right? And each of them happen through these modalities. And there you can think of them as kind of machines or whatever you want. They all have a specific type of offering to encourage cellular healing in your body. So, for instance, a lot of the things have vibration, and vibration in the body can do wonders. I mean, you're a martial arts guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like after you work out or anything like that, even just like getting a little bit of vibration in there, whether it's massage or like a Tim Tam or a rapid release or something like that, you can actually like open up the muscles that have become too contracted. And so the idea is that level of vibration actually can heal your body in very deep ways. So the pods themselves, we have a dry pod and then a steam pod. Mm-hmm. The dry pod is actually a full spectrum infrared sauna. So it gets up to about 185 degrees. It's kind of like, I kind of like laugh about this because like one's like being in a personalized steam room and the other one's like being in the desert, right? so the dry pod is like dry arid heat, and it doesn't have to go as high as 185, but that's as high as it goes. The bed is actually like a zero gravity chaise lounge, so it actually fits the contour of your body. the inside is lined with some gemstones, which like some people might be like, oh, that's a bunch of BS. But jade and tourmaline and howlite line the inside of the bed, and the idea behind those is they actually help filter.
Science.
Yeah, there's science to it. It helps filter out like some of the toxicities and impurities and stuff. Let's see. It blows some Himalayan sea salt. It has some aromatherapy. We've made actually aromas, like we've private labeled and created our own brand of private label essential oil blends. So you can choose from like uplift, unwind, or soothe. And you can have that kind of blowing through some salted air. So it's like Himalayan sea salted air. The cool thing about this pod, though, is that your body is in it and your head is out. So it has this fan that circulates air, which,
That's different. I
would
assume you're completely submerged.
Yeah. Well, the
Okay.
cool thing about it is that, like, when you have a fan blowing on your head and you're inside, your whole body's like at 185 degrees, it doesn't feel so hot.
Understood.
Right? It's like those, like, silly little fans that we put on our hats.
I say the voice at the back of the neck supposed to be one of the, like, that's one of the trigger points to how you feel with the rest of your body almost?
Yeah, totally. That and like kind of like around the back of the
okay.
So it's pretty cool that it has that variability. But the other thing is that your entire experience is completely customizable. So if the vibration is too much, you can turn it off. You can also lower it. You can change the heat so that it's just like 80 degrees and not 180.
Okay.
What else is customizable? Those are kind of the big things. You could turn on and off the face fan.
This is the dry pod.
That's the dry pod.
Okay.
And the idea is that
How long the sessions last?
So that session is 15 minutes.
Okay.
You could stay in there for as many as you want, but like, the cool thing is that like the heat, the vibration, and the infrared, like infrared's great for increasing circulation and decreasing inflammation, and there's a whole myriad of.
That's what I had heard.
Yeah,
decreased inflammation can be treated by infrared.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and it's interesting because some people who have like these like infrared saunas that you can just buy from like Sam's Club or Costco or whatever. I mean, they're great, but they offer full spectrum, and there's actually really. I mean, the most effective light wave is actually near infrared, which those don't actually have.
Lids are important.
Very important.
With kids especially, right?
Yeah. So the steam pod is a lot of the similar kind of things. So the steam pod, your head is out, your body is in. It gets up to 118 degrees, and steam kind of comes down from the top. The bed vibrates.
That has to be a different feeling, though.
It's a completely different feeling.
I can almost imagine the dry pod with my head out.
Yeah.
But the steam pod with my
your
head out, that has to be different.
As a woman who likes to wear makeup, let me tell you something. It's like a dream.
I bet.
No. I mean, the cool thing about the steam pod is that it hydrates your skin and your muscle tissue in ways that you can't. So if you go to a classic steam room, you're not going to get the infrared light, which you get in the steam pod.
Okay.
And there are also vitamins and minerals that you can add into your experience. So things like Cocoon, melanin, things like that. We haven't been using them for a couple of reasons. One of which, it has some algae in it that helps hydrate your skin in a different way. And there's like a shellfish allergy issue. So
Okay.
I've been debating whether or not I actually want to offer those. They're cool, but I also am kind of like, so we're figuring that out.
Understood.
So we actually have 2 of the steam pods. I may turn one into
So you have 1 dry and 2 steam. Okay.
Yeah. So those are those pods, and they're really, It's wild because they seem like they would be so similar, but the experiences, as you were saying, are very,
yeah,
very
I can imagine
different.
they would be different.
Yeah, they're really different. And I love the one cool thing about the steam pod is it really seriously looks like you're in a cocoon, and the lights change when you're in there.
It's like a disco.
So we turn off the lights, and then you're back there just kind of like hanging out, floating through space.
Yeah, I think that's good though, right? I mean, the whole experience needs to be pleasurable and fun, at least mentally, right? Especially
Yeah.
if it's new for you. Right?
Yeah. Well, and there's some science to the idea that certain colors elicit certain emotions, and certain
certainly.
colors resonate
Certainly.
with certain people. You can change it to like stay blue if you want, or you can turn it red, whatever. But whatever, it's really fun.
Okay. All right.
So those are the two
First floor.
Yeah, on the first floor, two of the things. We also have it's an arc LED light therapy bed. It looks like a tanning bed, but it's no UV, non-radiating. It's just literally LED light waves. And there's 3 light waves, red, green, and near infrared. And each of those light waves have different healing signatures. And I could probably talk about the science of it, but I won't bore you with it.
No, bring it on. Bring it on.
Essentially,
we can handle it.
essentially, red and green do wonders for like your skin and sort of more topical things. The near infrared light actually penetrates pretty deeply into your body. And what it does is it how to put it? It basically affects your cells so that your cells become more effective and efficient at utilizing the energy that they have. So it targets the mitochondria to take everything out of your cell that can't be used, and then just kind of like throws it out.
Discard it.
And then it also affects like ATP synthesis and protein synthesis and all of this really great stuff. So it's actually affecting your cells at a really deep level. It is really cool because you can't like overdose on the light. You can't. It's actually really extremely effective. But the one drawback to that particular light bed is that it's actually all light therapy, is that you have to do it over the course of time because your cells kind of need to be preloaded.
Understood. So you're not throwing an immediate effect the first time you
may. I mean, so when I went in it for the first time, I felt I was actually grappling with some thoracic outlet syndrome. I will blame that on my twins from carrying them. So I went in and I was undergoing some like chiropractic treatment and lots of massage.
Sure.
And I went in there and it actually was like the first time that I could feel circulation to my fingers because my circulation was being completely cut off by my pec muscles.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's wild.
Okay.
So for some people they feel it and some people they don't. I also think it has to do with the level of like body awareness and how well you can kind of feel the things inside of your body. But the way that it
something interesting, but that's a good point. To a newbie, just maybe starting to do yoga, that was stressed in some of the material I encountered.
Yeah.
But man, I think I was starting to get there by the end of the first year.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I could actually identify and feel the different aspects of my internal being. But it took a while.
Yeah,
it took a while for me.
Yeah,
for
and
me.
I think that time period is different for everybody,
Sure.
right? So for some people it's quick, and for some people it's not quick. And I think it kind of depends on how many layers you have to pull back to, you know? Like, I mean, for me, I was like, oh my God, I get this. Yes. You know, oh my God, I can feel my fingers. You know?
Yeah, I was waking up the next day going, oh my gosh, I've played every imaginable sport and I feel worse today. I was so sore.
Yeah.
But you get past that.
Yeah, I mean, you utilize muscles that you don't even know you
There's
had.
no question.
Yeah, and you utilize them in different ways than you would in, say, like martial arts or whatever. So,
or any other sport,
Yeah. So the way that the light bed kind of works is that you kind of do 3 sessions a week for a month. And those sessions start at 12 minutes and then work their way up to a half an hour. And then for the next month, you do twice a week. And then after that, it's just like once a week or once every so often. Yeah. So, and it's great. I mean, a lot of people have had great symptom relief. So we've been doing some case studies. We have people who've had lupus who've gone in there. Their symptoms like all but vanished. We've had some people with gout and pretty severe bunions and inflammation in that way, all but gone. We've had really great success with a lot of people using it. So, and generally speaking, I mean, who doesn't want to decrease their inflammation, you know? I mean, everything we do kind of creates inflammation.
Well, sure.
I mean, you eat enough sugar and my hands get
yes. I have a friend of mine who successfully defeated cancer, but he went through a heck of a difficult treatment. Yeah. I don't know if it's your facility. It could be. There, I don't know where he's going, but he is getting similar treatment. I think it could be, I believe it's the LED treatment, and he raves about it. And I just didn't have a chance to talk with him before you came in today to get like a little more background. But he raves about it because I guess the chemicals that were, and he had some other issues. He had some kidney issues already. He had some multitude of problems, but he bulked up. The medication kind of did that, lots of inflammation, but a lot of instant relief when he had these treatments. He raved about them to me. Yeah,
so I have a good friend who had a Baker's cyst. Like he had the corrective surgery for pretty severely bowed legs. And he came to a yoga class and he was like, oh, look at this. And it was like a Baker's cyst on the back of his knee that was just gnarly. Wow. I put him in the machine and it was like gone.
That's crazy.
It's wild. Yeah, and you know, like I said, like, you know, not everybody has like that immediate result. But, and, you know, we can't make any real claims, but, you know, if anybody wants to know anything about it, like I can send them research articles that have been written. And the way that this particular therapy was found was, you know, NIH, National Institutes of Health, was trying to create cancer on the backs of these like rodents. And what they ended up doing was like reversing what they were doing. Wow. So it's like, it's pretty wild. And it's wild because it's been around since the 70s and it's not widely utilized, which kind of blows my mind.
Can we talk a little bit about that? Like, what's your thoughts on like why?
I mean, the only thing I can really think of is the expense of creating the beds or the machines. But I mean, you know, things like TENS lights, you know, are becoming more popular to reduce inflammation in joints and spot treatments and things like that. So I think it's coming around, but like I think sometimes it takes society a while to kind of catch on. I also think there's probably a little, if I were to guess, like, you know, I mean, you know, there's definitely institutes of, you know, cancer institutes and such that use things like that. And I know that the Pirates have some sort of like light therapy that they use. A lot of functional medicine doctors use it. But I think that the basis is that most people look at that and they're like, oh, pseudoscience. But there's actual like real National Institutes of Health Science articles written about this very type of thing.
You're in a field that's just constantly barraged with, and there's obviously huge money behind our current medical system. We can go into that anytime you want, but I'm right there with you. Yeah. I'm right there with you. And, you know, there's powers that be that would want to eliminate companies like yourself, right?
Yeah, well, you know. So, yeah, I think that really, you know, what you know, the things that we're offering is really supposed to be like complement to whatever other treatments people are getting. And I think that I think that, you know, we as humans tend to get really involved in a niche, right? So if you're a cancer doctor, you surely do your due diligence in a lot of ways. But I know that your level of research outside of like what you know and what you're kind of trained to know is probably pretty limited based on the fact that you have so many patients and all this stuff. And actually, I have a very, very good friend who's a cancer doctor at UPMC at Hillman who's created this like UPMC oncology, integrative oncology program, where she is actually doing
Is that
things.
new?
It's been around since 2014.
Okay.
And they do things like acupuncture, reflexology, stuff with essential oils. They have an in-suite therapist, and also like massage workers, yoga teachers, meditation teachers.
That's a new.
And she basically
to be embraced by that, right?
Yeah, Lainey Francis is she is a powerhouse, and she just kind of was like, I'm doing this, and everybody kind of fell in line, so to speak, because she was
That's
basically
what it
like,
takes.
yeah, I mean, and it took her personal experience, like losing her mom to cancer, to like understand the other side of it, and understanding that like we're whole people, and you have to treat the whole person, and that goes for what we're doing too. You have to treat a whole person in order for them to feel their best, and a lot of times that's not done,
Well, they're fighting one disease with a horrid pharmaceutical drug to try, and then there's all the side effects that go with that that keep them in a state of sickness.
Yeah, sometimes, and
All the time,
sometimes those drugs work. I mean, it really. I mean, you gotta kind of.
It's a balance.
Yeah, there is a balance, and again, like you go to an orthopedic surgeon and they're probably going to suggest surgery. When you go to a chiropractor, they're going to say, let's just try some manual manipulation, so it really depends on how you look at it. And I think something that's really fortunate for us, I guess, as Westerners, is that we have the opportunity to do our research, and really kind of understand what's out there and what's available, and figure out what's going to be a good fit for us.
I think consumers are getting brighter in that regard. Do you think that we are?
I don't know if we're getting brighter or more stupid, just based on the fact that, like, you go in and you're like, well, Dr. Google told me so and so. This is what I have, and so it's sort of like one of those things. I can't imagine being a doctor in this current time, because I think that
in the world of Google.
Yeah, in the world of Google and WebMD.
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
And that's such a good point. And I have been a human who has fought the urge to ever Google anything I was feeling. I would rather go to my GP, which I like very much. But I would, even if I was fearful of what it might be, I didn't want to get more fearful for reading something that could have turned something very remedial into like death.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Just in a couple of paragraphs. Right?
Totally. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I can't diagnose myself.
Yeah, no.
And we're not trained to do that. I think it's so I'm not sure how.
Yeah, so
it helps.
I don't know. I don't know if we're getting smarter or not. I know that I know that information is traveling faster, right? So we know about things that are really scary quicker, and so that sort of has its own thing, I suppose.
If I go off the rails, bring me back.
That's okay.
So, and I'm prefacing what I say. You don't like that. I'm just going to say it.
Okay, cool.
Eastern medicine or any other kind of practiced medicine, things that seem to work in other cultures, the AMA and the heavy the medical communities here are very skeptical, obviously. But now that the world's getting smaller with the web and everything else, people are finding out about different things, and it seems like the integration is always just really hazy.
Well, I think I guess I can't really speak about like regular traditional medicine, but like I can say that, like, I've seen sort of the integration of like even just having like a yoga program in a medical facility, or like hospitals are providing Reiki to patients, like Reiki is like energy work, like doing that kind of stuff, like seeing that move in a more mainstream direction is really fascinating to me, because it's like, people are kind of catching on that there's some validity to this, even if there isn't like even if there isn't a ton of science that supports it. But I can say, in the last few years, I guess maybe in the last 7 years, there's a whole group of people who are like yoga and meditation teachers and practitioners, and they have started like a whole it's almost like a medical journal almost, or like a peer-reviewed research driven journal. And they've been trying to, get some of the research that we perform some of the research of the things that we know to be true.
Okay.
And we know, like with like, I don't know, like a capital K or something, like we know it to be true because we've seen it work. We've seen results through these practices. And now they're just kind of like looking into it a little deeper. I mean, the same thing with like the Mind and Life Institute. They have this amazing research symposium where they dedicate an entire week to practitioners, researchers, and then, other people. And every year they have kind of like a theme. Sometimes, a couple of years ago it was addiction. A couple of years ago before that it was about mindfulness. And they really take all of these things and have really serious, enlightening conversations with each other. Because I think the big thing is like this divisive kind of less collaborative, more
that's how it was.
This is what I do,
right.
This is what I do,
right.
And then never the two meet,
Remember a couple of years ago, I don't know if it was UPMC or the competitor Allegheny Health System. I don't pretend to pay attention, but there was a media campaign that struck me from an advertising standpoint, where they were swimming and they'd reach and they'd touch and they leave a blue imprint. And
I remember that. I think it was Highmark.
Was it Highmark? And they were talking about how they were approaching illness from all avenues, including holistic.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to myself, sitting on my sofa, going, "That is a breakthrough."
Yeah.
It's being advertised to us, and some might not catch that, but that's gotta be a breakthrough, right?
Yeah. And I think it's like baby steps, right? It's baby steps. So, medical providers, I think the providers themselves obviously want to see the best results for their patients.
Sure.
I think when you kind of pull it out and you look at the whole company, I mean, some of these companies really are turning huge profits, and so you want to continue that profit, that increased income year over year. And I think sometimes it gets a little murky because you want the best for your patients, but at the same time you're a business, you're running a business.
With the human greed part of and again, not to label anybody, but I'm saying that human element of greed's a funny word to use there, but I have to put it there because there's plenty of examples in the medical community, especially the pharmaceutical end of it, where the greed is prevalent, and I think that's changing over time. I think we're becoming better as a people. I think we'll see.
I think people are just becoming aware that they don't have to take X medication. There are other alternatives, and again, I think that kind of speaks to that level of thank you, Dr. Google, but also like, just becoming more aware and more educated that there are other opportunities. And, likewise with that idea of like, kind of information traveling faster, it's easier to tap into support groups now, so if you
Which is
need,
a great thing.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. If you need help with something, you say you have some type of cancer or whatever, you can actually tap into a group online who are there to like, support you in your journey. Maybe what worked for somebody won't work for you, but there is an opportunity for you to maybe become better educated.
I think too, even on a more social societal thing that's encouraging to me, which I know social media has driven, but we as a people are more, I think we're more loving and caring to strangers and people that we meet through these groups who are stricken with these illnesses through these groups, and more money is organically raised. I mean, we're just that's the good side of social media for me that really gives me hope.
Totally.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and all the muck that's out there, you can take it for what it's worth. But so talk a little bit more about about what else? So we're at floor 1, right?
Yeah, we're at floor 1.
All right. So now, have you finished floor 1?
No.
Okay, let's hear it. I got you sidetracked, and I apologize for that.
That's okay.
I told you this is free flowing. So.
I love it. It's great. I like having conversations.
You got it. Me too. Me too.
So we did the pods, light bed. We have a salt chamber, which is basically like a phone booth. That it sounds so crazy.
I haven't seen a phone booth in a while.
I know, right? I don't know that some of your listeners have even know what a phone
not.
booth is.
Yeah. Google it.
Yes.
Doctor Who, right? In the little red phone booth there.
The TARDIS. Anyway, yeah. So it looks like a phone booth.
A vertical phone booth.
A vertical phone booth.
Okay.
And basically, you sit in this booth. It's in a climate-controlled room, and we take Himalayan sea salt, and it's placed into a grinder. And it's ground up and then dispersed into the air while you're sitting in the phone booth. So
that's something.
Yeah, it's cool. There's like this pretty big trend about, like salt caves and stuff where you can go and you can sit in these rooms that are lined with these blocks of salt.
I've seen that.
Yeah, that's great. Those work well too. They also have this halogenator thing that basically grinds up the salt and pushes it into the air.
So what is it about salt in the human skin?
It's skin and any sort of mucosal tissue.
Okay.
So salt, the way that it works, or my understanding of it, is that it's pretty like antibacterial, antiviral, all that stuff. And so what happens is, and it's also anti-inflammatory, right? So when your skin comes in contact with the salt, it has this effect where it'll lessen symptoms of like skin issues, so like psoriasis and eczema.
Okay.
When you breathe in the salt, I don't know if you've ever been like near the ocean.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And you just like that like amazing like that amazing breathing that you can do when you're near the ocean is basically because of the salt in the air. So there's this level. The thing that this does is it kind of takes it in a therapeutic level. So while you're sitting in there and you're breathing deeply, it'll eliminate or lessen, anyway, the symptoms of like bronchial, ear, nose, throat issues. If you have allergies, it'll kind of lessen that. It's a little bit intense because it's a high concentration of salt in the air. So your eyes might get a little like irritated or whatever. It only lasts a few minutes. Your throat might like burn a little bit.
And how long are you in there?
Like 10 to 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
It's like so fast. And literally we have a box of tissues sitting in there because everybody like ends up like needing them. So that's pretty great. And it's actually sort of an interesting thing. I thought out of all of the things that we purchased that would kind of be the least like flashy, least like exciting.
What's better than the pod, man?
Well, I know, right? What's better than floating in outer space?
Right.
But yeah, that thing, it's really effective. And actually, the gals from Setting the Scene at the Post-Gazette.
I saw that.
Natalie and Sarah.
Right,
yeah. So
right.
Sarah had a terrible cold, and she came in after she did a session during the segment. Then she came in like a week later, a couple days later, and used it because she was like, I can't breathe.
It worked, yeah.
I have somebody else who's like a podcaster, and she came in. She's like, I can't breathe, and she sent me a thank you note. She's like, I was able to breathe.
That's
it was
awesome.
so good. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So so that's a pretty neat thing. And then we have two other things that are sort of like, the big deal stuff. We have a sensory deprivation tank. So it's a float tank.
Oh, I've always wanted to do that.
Come and try it.
I'm going to.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got this recorded
Absolutely.
visually. Audio.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Already.
I've heard of those for years, and I've never known where to go to find one.
Yeah. So they're all over the place. They're kind of becoming a real thing. Just kind of like the infrared sauna places now are becoming a big thing. So float tanks are cool because the idea is that it turns off all of your senses, and it does it because it's a deprivation tank. It takes out all the light. There's no light. There's no sound. The temperature is about 95-ish degrees, which is the same as your skin temperature.
Are you in water?
You're in water. You're in about 12 inches of water, and there's about 800 pounds of Epsom salt in there. So
Holy smokes.
So yeah, so you go in and it basically takes off all of the pressure from your joints. It's great for relieving any sort of inflammation. I mean, clearly, like you're in a bunch of salt water.
No doubt.
And a lot of people claim that they have really super mindful moments when they're in there because, I mean, let's face it, everywhere we go, there's like lights, there's sound, there's all this stuff. And being able to take all of that offline really has a pretty great effect. I can mention quite a few people, my husband included. He is an avid floater. He loves floating. He thinks it's like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And he has like a lot of like ADHD type stuff happening. So there's constant momentum. And he's like, whenever I come out of the float tank, I feel amazing. There's nothing better.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's actually a neurological effect that happens with that too, that has a really positive effect in sort of like your self-awareness and stuff like that. And then the last modality that we have, aside from like all the other like stuff like massage and we have acupuncturist,
oh my goodness,
all that stuff.
That's your full service.
Yeah. Well, the idea was that it was like a wellness concierge service. So I have a really vast network of really quality people. And if you need something, I likely have a person for it, or know of somebody who has a person for it.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so the idea is that like people can come in and be like, I need X, and we can be like, yes, we have somebody for you. Here you go. And then it creates
good business too.
Well, it makes a great referral network.
No question.
You know, like I mean, it's like we have preferred suppliers, and some of them work out of our studio, some of them work out of their own places, and that's great. But it's very collaborative in that way, and it pulls in the community into our space so that like they too can receive the benefits and talk about it, because the stuff that we're doing I think is pretty big.
Before we go to floor 2, I just want to say for the record, so when I investigated you folks, the reviews are incredible and they're outstanding. And so I will say for the record, that was part of the reason I really wanted you in here, because you know, we have to be obviously very selective, and we want, because we want the real deal.
Yeah.
And you guys are so well respected. So I want you to know
Thank you.
that.
That's
no, but
great.
it's very true. And
Yeah.
it's very obvious for anybody that investigates your company. So that's got to be rewarding for you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Do you
like,
ever take it in? Do you
Yeah.
take a moment to take it? Are you
Yeah.
mindful of that?
I am mindful of our positive reviews.
Good deal.
I think
Good deal. You should be.
I think a lot of my time is spent like, okay, how can we like further our reach?
Sure.
How can we get
Sure, I
this
get
to
that.
more people?
I get that.
You know, so I think a lot of my stuff is kind of sent in that way. But I'm so appreciative of people who leave us
Oh, they're
feedback and
incredible
reviews.
reviews, yeah.
And even like you know, one of the things we have is like our teachers all get to use the stuff that we have on our first floor so that they are knowledgeable about it. And if they have a client or whatever that
Smart.
needs to use it, they are
Smart.
knowledgeable about it because they've experienced it. So we do a lot of stuff like that so that
Okay.
we can encourage that sense of healing. And you know, everybody seems to have really positive feedback. I mean, not every modality is for every person,
Right.
which is totally cool.
That was expected, right?
Yeah, totally. But like, you know, there are a lot of things that we have to offer that really do great stuff. The only other modality that we have at all is we have this thing called a sound lounge, which I feel like you being a music guy, you're probably really gonna love.
We kind of have a sound lounge in here,
You
don't we?
do, you do. So the sound lounge
We don't have
takes.
the salt.
Yeah, we could probably find some and throw it on ourselves.
Salt. Maybe the whole floors will be laden with salt in here next.
Yes, actually, and then you have people come in your bare feet, and your pores have
That
have
would
like
be a bad idea.
52,000 pores.
How
Maybe you
crazy
just
would
get,
that be? We got to
maybe you
talk
just
about
get-
that.
Maybe you just get like some bins that you can stick your feet in.
Do you ever see the desks that have the sand? Like,
Yeah, totally.
That's a thing.
That is a thing. You could be known as the salt
Salt Studio.
Yeah, so the Sound Lounge takes the science behind different tones and frequencies having healing properties. And it sounds like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, but actually there's evidence to it.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, and we all know that, right? You can kind of like certain music elicits certain feelings, you know,
I think
like
that's science. They've done so many scientific studies on that, though.
Right. So there's a ton of research so you can do everything from elicit a happier mood to reduce physical pain to enhance your meditative awareness in that state. And the cool thing about it is what this does is it takes the idea behind hearing it and then transduces it through this zero gravity chaise lounge. And so you're basically like lying on a bed that vibrates with the sound.
Music.
Yeah, it's of music, but it's a little different than just like sitting on a speaker or like a,
you can do that too.
An amp.
But it's very direct and one kind.
Yes, true. And this is cool because it's very we can target different aspects of what you need. So if you come in and you are you're really tired and you need to like kind of amp yourself up, there's a track that we play. It's like about 20 to 30 minutes long, and it will actually induce the same theta waves that you would get, you know, in REM sleep.
Oh, I'm totally a believer of that. I suffer a bit from tinnitus, and as I am getting older, it's becoming more of an issue for me.
Everybody in music has suffered from that.
Yeah,
to some degree.
and I'll share with the audience. The past 6 months, it's got progressively worse, especially on the right side of my head. What does salve it for me, or what's a salve for me, is creating noise. Whether, believe it or not, I don't watch TV, but like listening to a ball game, or it's those quiet moments where I'm in a somewhat quiet environment where it becomes just almost unbearable.
Yeah.
Right. So what's your thoughts on white noise? Is there white noise? Is white noise part of the part of that treatment?
No, but you know, it's interesting. It's not, but you could clearly make it that way. I'm not sure what the vibration would be for the white noise, but when you come in, we'll have to test it out.
All right.
All right. Yeah. So there, you know, a lot of the ways that these tones and frequencies are situated is within music. So, so you don't even realize that you're listening. It sounds like you're listening to a dance track, or it sounds like you're listening to some crystal bowls, and like, you know, it's just like those tones and frequencies that you need are just sort of like put right in the music. So
we'll go back to yoga for a second. Isn't the musical component to a lot of those routines, is a terrible word to use, but
sequences, whatever.
Sequences, right? But there's something to that. I can remember my introduction to yoga, and the tracks were so inviting to me. Something I would never listen to driving down the road.
Totally.
But man, I look forward to them.
Yeah.
They didn't put me to sleep, but they completely helped relax me.
Sure, yeah.
And I remember that being very powerful for me.
Yeah, yeah. And I, you know, we have, that is powerful. I love going to a yoga class and hearing some like upbeat popular music. That's
I've
great.
never done that.
But I personally try to play stuff that has 0 words, because as soon as you get caught up in one of those words or some concept, then you're distracted. And so
vocals are a bitch. To me, because we could get on a whole nother path, and I won't keep you, but I will tell you, I use certain music for certain things, and if I'm concentrating on a spreadsheets, I'll put like dueling pianos on.
Yeah,
it gets me where I need to go.
Yeah, right.
But if you introduce vocals, even if I don't know the song, it will take me in it'll put me in a different mental state that'll take me away from my work.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah. I mean, you know, you can go on Apple Music or Spotify or Pandora or whatever and create these like concentration playlists.
Right. So I'm not crazy doing this, right?
No, you're like part of the crowd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Just checking. Okay.
Yeah. And so whenever somebody's on the Sound Lounge, we basically give them an eye pillow, turn off the lights, and be like, see you in 30 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it is.
And how they come out, they're like,
literally, people come out and they're like, you know, stumbling into walls and People will be like, I feel like I'm high, and I'm like, yes.
That's what you were looking for.
Yes,
Naturally.
I want you to float back to work. Yeah, so it's good. That's probably the one thing that's flashy. I feel like we take that to a lot of companies and stuff. So a lot of companies will call us and be like, "Hey, can you bring the sound lounge for
That's part of your marketing plan for the business."
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, people
How
will
about
pay us
that?
to like bring the sound lounge. I mean, it's wild and
Wow.
it's so effective. Like literally, you only need like 7 minutes of that, and you're good to go. You don't have to do the full track.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and usually we play a track that's like good for midday, like if you need to like refocus, cup
Yeah.
of coffee kind of thing. So
it's musical caffeine.
yes, musical caffeine, musical energy. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That way you don't have to go back to work and listen to Kiss, which my 6-year-old is like obsessed with right now. I'm sorry.
It's just my past. I can't help
No,
it.
I love it.
There's
I
a
just
time
like
and
I
place
keep
for
looking up there,
everything.
and I'm gonna have to take a picture of these pictures because
Oh, I took those.
my
I took those.
my 6-year-old is obsessed with Kiss right now.
Yeah, this is the last hurrah for them. Yeah, Paul Stanley was my client.
I know
That's
we
the
were-
guy I worked with. So
We were thinking about taking him to Harrisburg or Hershey or
Oh,
wherever
yeah,
to see him, just
yeah.
because he literally just in the last couple of weeks, and you know what did it? Scooby-Doo.
oh, the cartoon.
There was a Scooby-Doo cartoon.
Yes. And the guitars that's drawn in there actually was part of that design came out of here. So
Yes.
pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
You never know.
So cool.
Very cool. Yeah, but they're a
Yeah.
visual band.
They
Probably
are.
not what you want to play in the pod.
No, not what you want to play in the pod. I don't
You're
know.
going to the pod because you listened to too much of that over the course of
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's where the tinnitus comes from
Yeah,
for me.
right. Totally.
Too much of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That damn amp right there did it to me. Anyways.
Marshall has a way.
And so does Laney, yes, indeed. made to abuse the eardrums.
Yeah.
As you know, right? You're a music buff here.
Yeah.
That's a funny.
Yeah.
She said Marshall will do that to you. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. It's made to do one. Throw that.
Yep.
Well, a little side. Marshall it's tonal. You can adjust that. Those over there are made to do one thing, and that's make your eardrums
drums
bleed.
bleed.
And that's it, yeah, and that's pretty much that. They do it very well.
That's wild.
So is that the last modal in the first floor?
Yep, that's the last modality. And again, like we have two people who do, we call them integration specialists who do massage. There's a specific type of massage that isn't offered anywhere else, and it comes with this this commercial grade rapid release. So it's like it's like an oscillation and vibration at the same time. And Javier does this cool thing where he basically runs different meridians in the body. He's like a Thai massage guy, and also clinical and orthopedic massage. So if you got a problem, like you go see him and he fixes you pretty
Wow.
quickly. It's pretty awesome.
I
yeah.
bet.
Yeah, it's pretty great having him in the building when you've got thoracic outlet. Javier, I'm feeling a flare.
Hopefully. Javier, I'm feeling a flare.
Yes.
I walk in the building. Where's Javier? Javier, I'm feeling a flare. I just want that addressed right away, sir.
Yes. So he has this treatment called Cengage, and it's really super awesome.
Sure.
It takes 30 minutes to do your entire body.
Wow. Okay.
You get up and you're like, what just
Okay.
happened to me?
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, so we've got a lot of great stuff happening, and pretty much like I said, anything that you would need. We have a therapist who works out of our facility too. So if you need some mental health other than
Oh,
what we're
really?
offering, yeah.
Really? How's that on floor 2?
She's like on floor 1. We have a treatment room.
You got a big floor run there.
Yeah, it's about 3,000 square feet. So
Floor 1?
yeah.
Okay.
So it's like 2,500, 3,000 square
Okay.
feet. So
Yeah.
we've got full bathrooms, so you could, with showers and everything. So
Okay. And the yoga studio is on the fourth floor. Now we
Uh-huh.
have 2 floors left.
The 2 floors in between are actually a law office.
Get out.
Get out!
Really?
Yeah, so they're actually friends of mine, Rabner Law
Oh, that's
offices.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
That works good.
They're great guys, and they own the building, and so they're friends of mine. And they were like, "Hey, I've got this space." I'm like, "Yes, I will take
That's
it."
phenomenal.
Hey, I have this other space. I'm like, "Great, I'll take it."
Is it
I
ph-
hope
now-
they feel that that's phenomenal.
Well, she's asking. So the 4th floor, the yoga studio, is it broken up, compartmentalized? Is there different classes going on at one time?
Nope, there's just one big room.
Okay.
There's a smaller treatment room that we're gonna put the infrared sauna into, like a regular old classic infrared sauna. And we have a bathroom up there and stuff. But generally, like, we just have classes and workshops and teacher trainings and stuff up there. So
and how many yoga instructors do you have?
I think right now we have about 10.
Wow.
So, and everybody kind of teaches something a little different. One of the things that we have is Tuesday nights are kind of a big night at the studio. We have an Iyengar class, which is like a very specific type of yoga where they focus on alignment and kind of like mastering poses. And then after that is black yoga, and it's this couple.
What is that?
Oh, it's so great. It's so phenomenal. I feel like you would love it, actually.
Okay.
You're going to have to come.
Okay.
It's Kimmy and Scott Massey, and they basically developed black yoga for people who feel anxious, feel like they're kind of outcasts, outliers, whatever. You go to the class, and literally it's done in the dark. It's candle lit. They create their own soundtracks. They actually have an ensemble that they make their own music. And it's all sort of drone-y type of, I would say it's like drone metal, but like it's actually
Jimmy Page in a studio by himself.
No, actually no. No. But there's a variety of people, like they kind of took some of their influence from this band Sunno. He's a very sort of drone stoner type metal. Another band would be like oh my gosh, I'm gonna draw a blank.
Sorry.
Regardless, they basically take the idea of that and they play music really, really loud. They set up amps. And
really?
Yeah, and actually I think it's July 13th. I'm pretty sure it's July 13th. They're having a live performance for the class. So they're going to do a late night yoga class. It's going to be a whole performance. They've made DVDs.
So that's totally different than traditional yoga. That's something really different.
It's really, really cool. And the greatest thing about it is there's like every age you can think of, and I would say it's probably like a 60-40 split, men being the 60%, which is amazing because a lot of times when people think about yoga, they think it's just for women, and that's a bunch of BS.
Yeah, that's a huge bunch of BS.
Yeah, but their classes are great, and it's awesome. Nobody gives a shit about what anybody else is doing. Like they just do their thing, and it's great.
That's cool.
Really, really awesome.
I might be interested in taking that just to see what that sounds about. That's crazy.
And it's done in the dark, so nobody's going to be judging.
My forms are all bad. My poses are all bad.
I'm sure they're probably great.
It should come back to me. I'd just be, not probably in the ultimate position because the body won't get there. But it's yoga. I remember walking away from yoga, not intentionally, just slowing it down because of life, and we always move away from the things that work.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why that. Why is that?
I don't know. I think it's because we feel good.
You think that's it?
And then we just don't attribute it to the thing that made us feel good until after we're done and we're like, oh shit, that thing really worked.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
What about like diet and so forth? Do you folks have people that talk about nutrition and everything?
Yeah, I have some nutritional people that we can utilize if need be.
That's a huge part of the whole.
It is a huge
state,
part.
Inflammation especially.
Yeah, totally. And actually, I have a doctor that I've been kind of referring people to who's like a functional clinical diet guy. And so we kind of send a bunch of people his way because he really, I've seen him do miraculous things in his practice. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
It's great. He does like blood testing and all that great stuff. So you come away like really knowing what's wrong with you.
Yeah, well, that's the purpose of going to a doctor. It's supposed to be.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Totally.
So the marketing we were talking off air that I really like the design of the logo. The website is very simplistic and very user-friendly. It reflects, I think, well on what you've talked about here tonight. So you do more marketing to corporations and so forth, where you go in and as
we have a total corporate wellness portion of our business.
I find that very fascinating.
Yeah, we've been doing. I have been doing that for a long time, like going into different law firms, insurance companies, whatever, and
always been receptive for the most part.
Yeah, they contact me. I mean,
that's great.
Yeah, they contact me to come in and do meditation or bring the sound lounge or whatever. Some companies are, want to do yoga or whatever, and it's great. And the corporate wellness stuff is huge because
Preventative, right?
Well, it's preventative, and it also there's this level of investment that you have as an employer to your employee if you're offering them things to make them feel better.
Makes sense.
And so there's a ton of research that shows how much money you save. I don't know what it's at now. It used to be like, I don't know, probably like $4 to $6 per hour.
I believe it. In productivity.
In productivity, because people feel like they're being taken care of, they're cared about, and you're helping these people work towards better health. So so what we do is we basically come in and customize a plan for whatever it is that they need. So for instance, one company wanted to do like a points-based corporate wellness program where they would do like a challenge. They'd have teams, and each team would gain so many points, and they'd get like some type of incentive at the end of the time, whether it was like they won like an Apple iWatch or something like that.
Right.
So that kind of stuff is really cool, and it's easy for me to do because it's like evangelizing all the stuff that we do and hitting all these people all at once.
Sure. Works twofold.
Yeah, totally. So we do that kind of where we go out of the studio, and then we also have things where where people come in. So, if companies want to have, X number of, employees sign up for packages or whatever, we offer them a discount. Same thing with like the modalities. So the way our memberships work is you can purchase a membership based on a set number of minutes per month, and you can use those in whatever way you please. So you could share them if you want.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I just find that
cool.
The only thing that doesn't work with is the yoga. So yoga is like there's an unlimited package there with the yoga whenever you get.
Can't share that.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
No, you got to keep that.
Yes, exactly. You're right.
So we do stuff like that too, where companies will buy a membership and then they'll divvy out the minutes or the number of hours to their executives or their administrative staff or whatever.
Is the meditative part of this separate from the yoga?
Yes and no.
Okay. Of course.
Yes and no.
Of course.
So the meditation piece of this, there's always a meditative component to yoga itself. Even when you're doing the postures, I'm sure you experienced it whenever you were doing it.
Especially at the end.
Oh, yeah. Shavasana is the greatest. Like laying and taking a yoga nap is the most amazing thing. Yeah. Especially after you exerted all that energy. And my favorite part about that is just like lying there and just kind of feeling the tingling under your skin. You're just like, yes, I did something.
And then it's over and you have to stand up for a second like, just leave me here 15 more minutes of that, right?
Yeah. I always find that Shavasana is not long enough for anybody, so I always kind of tend to err on the side of longer Shavasana. 15 minutes.
I get it.
Yes. 1/4 of your class will be Shavasana. But there is like a separate meditation component to it. So you can kind of go downstairs and get like that integration from those modalities and the machines. You could do it through yoga. And then we also offer like a variety of meditation classes 3 times a week. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
So what's a
1.
meditation class? Explain that to me.
Essentially, there's somebody there who's guiding you through a type of meditation. And the types of meditations are like countless. So you have like insight or vipassana meditation where you really focus on being present in your body, feeling your body, understanding what that feels like, kind of moving through that in your breath. You've got meditation where you've, you kind of move into sending compassion to yourself and to other people. That's sort of fun. You could do a lot of visualization techniques. So.
That's what I was exposed to.
Yeah. So like things like...
not enough, I don't think.
Yeah. So burning, like you can kind of like burn energetic cords and like, you know, things like that, where you do a lot of visualization and a lot of sort of healing through those, I guess, sort of seeing it in your mind's eye.
But does it all start with the breathing, right? Is it all pretty
Yeah,
much,
I mean,
pretty much?
breathing is pretty much the foundation piece of all of these practices, right? So again, like, you know, we were talking about earlier, if you're contracted in your breath, you're likely contracted in your body.
Sure, absolutely.
And the more you can kind of like, you know, lift yourself up, create more space in your body, the better off you'll be, and the deeper you'll be able to breathe. And again, like, you know, it can really facilitate more anxiety response if you are in a space where you're kind of like, you know, instead of like really breathing.
Which is basically the essence of anxiety, right? That's
Right.
That starts there, right? With
Yeah,
the
I mean, it
breathing.
doesn't start there, but it definitely is a symptom
Okay.
of. I think anxiety starts from a variety of different reasons, but I think a lot of that is like a misalignment. So in how you're feeling and how you're actually existing in the world, I think anxiety is like
Because they're not in congruence.
Yeah, they're not in congruence. They are. My personal opinion is that, like, when people are out of alignment, all sorts of wonky things start to happen in the body, right? You can have depression, you can have anxiety, you can, you know, get angry, you know, and it's all like a suppression. So you're not supposed to feel this way. So, like, let's just stuff it, or let's alter the way that we're feeling and be like super happy, positive, and not really feel what we're feeling, or busy our time. And I think that those are the reasons why we need things like meditation practices. We need places like Illume to be able to go to just like step out of ourselves for 15 minutes and just, you know, kind of step out of ourselves to step deeper into ourselves, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. So.
Huh. Yeah, this is fascinating to me. That's fascinating
So
to me.
you'll be in next week, right?
Yeah, I will be in next week. I don't know where to begin.
Don't worry, we can take care of that for you.
I'm sure. That I have no doubt. I'm going to tell you a statement, and you tell me what your thoughts are on it.
Okay.
Through the course of my life, I've always been in a less anxious and more positive place when I was in touch with my personal philosophy as a person. Like, I will actually write it down. I know all the 7 tenets of what I believe to be true about who I really am. When I deviate, or I cognitively and consciously deviate from that, or 1, 2, 3, 5 parts of it, every time I deviate, sometimes even just a little bit, I feel the anxiety come, because I know that this may sound very elementary or maybe very specific, but my life runs better when I'm congruent with my own personal philosophy. Now, I think that's a tough sell on some people, to get them to think, and hey, are you really sure exactly what you believe about yourself and how you should act?
Yeah.
But I got this personal philosophy thing from a business philosopher named Jim Rohn, who wasn't, he never talked about meditation, never talked about anything else, but early on, I really wanted to be centered on what I believed. And his concept was, if you believe that and you try to live your life in that parameter, nothing can really touch you.
Yeah.
And when I feel when I'm in there, I'm in a good spot, but life will pull you out of that.
Yeah, totally.
And when you get too far out of it, anxiety's an issue. I deal with it. I deal with it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and
does that make any sense to
Yeah,
you?
no, that makes total sense. I think that's kind of just a perfect example of what I just said. Like, I think you know, certainly there are lots of things that can cause anxiety through the course of life, whether it's like trauma and it can be like really kind of seemingly benign trauma that we experience as kids or whatever. I think that really, those experiences really set the tone. And, you know, when you're kind of pulled out of your personal philosophy and not honoring that, then that too is sort of like a byproduct or maybe a symptom of whatever it is, however you've adapted yourself to be
unfortunate adaptation.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes it's fortunate, sometimes it's unfortunate, right?
Okay.
So sometimes I think we get, so if you have
Too rigid.
You can't be too rigid because, as soon as you say, oh, this is not me, this is not what I would do.
Have kids.
Then that intention, yes, that is definitely trying.
Pull you out,
that'll pull you out of it. But
Right.
the other thing is too is that like just even general growth and development. We move through the world and we experience things. I was listening to a podcast earlier today. Somebody that I have kind of a love-hate relationship with this person, and so I was listening to their podcast and they were talking about being healers in the world and how sometimes being a healer, you get a stigma that you have to create this boundary, this very, very strict boundary, and not let the people that you're talking with or dealing with or working with understand where you're coming from or know that you're influenced by their emotions. It's a really like kind of therapist type view, like, okay, I'm over here, you're over there, and never the
Keeping
two
the
shall
distance,
meet.
right.
And it was so interesting to me because one of the things she said was, like when we suppress those emotions as healers ourselves, like we tend to create that dissonance, right? So those seven tenets that you have, nine tenets.
Yeah. The two grew after time, after I got older.
Right. So and maybe the wording of those like slightly changes over time, and
So
maybe
true.
maybe like maybe a word that resonated with you before is not the word for
So
you
true.
now.
So true.
So it's like you kind of have to be. It's great to have like a structure, but I think anything can become too dogmatic, right?
Yes,
Even yoga,
which can cause
yeah.
its own stress.
Yes, and then it's like, oh shit, I'm not doing it right. And
Right.
then
But
it
who
becomes,
set the rules? Me. And
Yeah,
I can
right.
change them when
in
I
a
want.
heartbeat.
Yeah. Right.
In the blink of an eye. So it really is a matter of understanding, engaging like who you are and what you need and how you exist in the world. And that's, again, I think that's like really kind of the purpose of what we do. Even if it's not overt in like, hey, I'm going to coach you and we're going to do some intention setting, like that kind of thing. I really hope that people come away with this idea or this feeling or this notion or sensation, whatever it is, that they can be completely comfortable and safe in our space to explore whoever it is that they are. And that, I think, is huge because I don't feel that way a lot of places that I go. I mean, I feel that way, but when I walk into a space, I often ask myself, like, hey, is this like a place where I can be very comfortable to express myself? And how would other people feel about this too? How would a man
So how
feel
do you
about
feel
this?
about this place?
Oh, this is great.
You like it?
Yeah, I
No,
love
really?
it.
Honestly?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay,
It's
cool.
a really
Thank
welcoming
you.
environment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So again, it's like one of those things where, it's creating the space and setting the intention for this space, right? So that when somebody walks through the door, they're welcome, they're invited.
Sure.
They feel comfortable.
Sure.
So, I mean, yeah.
You said something very early on, either it was on camera or off camera,
Yeah.
but it resonated with me. So let's explore that for a second, if you don't mind. You made a comment about non-materialism and the essence of yoga being really about getting in line with yourself and feeling well,
Right.
having a good state,
Yeah.
and putting that way above anything else that's in.
Yeah.
Okay, so this
I
room.
maybe take it to an extreme.
Well, no, but it was pretty good, though. It really resonated with me because regardless of what you see in this room, my whole life I've lived pretty much unattached to things. My parents kind of got that right with me.
That's awesome.
Went through kind of, went through the 80s as a young guy in a 20, had to have the fancy watch and the Ralph Lauren shirts.
Sure.
But generally speaking, I'm not attached, and this has been my mantra for 20-some years, and I think it's helped me, not attached to any inanimate object. Relationships and people, animals, things that I love, different story.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, I've dived into learning about minimalism and how it works in different degrees for people. But one of the really awesome parts of yoga for me was that we worry a lot about our stuff in relationship to homes and cars and things and work-related items. And the more I got into yoga and looked inward, all that stuff not only didn't have any meaning, it was almost like cluttering my life. Does that?
Oh, total clutter.
Can we explore that for a second? Because I've been wanting to have this conversation with somebody.
I'm your girl.
For so long. And so you ever heard of have you ever heard of the Minimalists?
Oh yeah.
Jonathan Fields Milburn and the other gentleman. I got onto them in 2012 when they just started, and now they're doing pretty well on their shows and their stories, been repeated many times, but it really made me even look further inwards. They don't talk about yoga or meditation or anything in there, but they really talk about just owning what you absolutely need.
Yeah,
well, that's an extreme.
Yeah.
And yet we have kids.
But,
and those two gentlemen don't have kids. So they're coming from a different area, right?
Shit. 3 kids. I have 3 kids. And let me tell you, this morning as I'm putting away the myriad of toys, I was just like, I'm going to throw all this shit out when I get home.
That's
like
anxiety, right?
I can't, it creates so much anxiety.
Okay.
And there's actually a whole segment of the population that is really about if you declutter your external environment, you can begin to declutter your internal environment because we create these attachments to things. And so maybe your attachment is a memory and you don't want to let go of that memory. And it takes some compassion to be able to deal with somebody who's having an issue with holding on to things. I mean, and again, it can get in hoarder status. But the problem, I think part of the problem is that people place this value on these items, and
how did that happen?
I mean, I'm sure a number of ways. I think partly it's societal, right? We're always striving for more. Look at these flashy things. Social media totally takes it in a direction. I mean, I literally am addicted to Instagram. I will scroll through Instagram for hours if given the opportunity, just looking at flashy pictures. And it's not even it doesn't have to be yoga. It doesn't have to be a flashy car, fancy guitar, new amp, whatever. It can be anything. I'm just ooh, look at that pretty picture. Let's read about that, So I think partly it's just societal, but I also think that partly it's an adaptive quality, right? So as we sort of, as time evolves and there's new technology and there's new shiny things, I think what we do is we equate having things for happiness and joy.
Value, human value?
Human value, yeah. We place human qualities and emotions onto things. And really, quite frankly, it's really about the experience that you have. It's not about the picture that you took or the thing that you ended up with. But that's not to say that you have to live a life of scarcity, right? You don't have to live in a place of lack or non-abundance. But I think the idea is that you lessen the suffering that you can create, the anxiety, keeping up with the Joneses, any of those feelings, you can lessen those by eliminating them and just making life simpler. And I think that, we tend to overcomplicate things as humans. Our egos get in the way and, all kinds of other fun things happen. And so I think we tend to really, really challenge ourselves and complicate things. And I think, the idea of finding more minimal things, not attaching to, the stuff that you have, and that's really hard. I mean, it's really hard for me. I look at it I'm going to pay bills and every month I'm oh shit, are we going to make this work? How's this going to work? But the idea is that you kind of have to detach from that and just kind of say I'm going to give it my best effort. And if it doesn't do what it needs to do, then I tried.
Yeah.
And it's about the experience of doing it.
Absolutely right. So to bridge that, when I was in the guitar business, we started having some momentum. And with success brings, a different house, different car, things like that. So I kind of fought all that.
Yeah.
But I was always asked the question, Eric, I'd love to see your guitar collection. And I never had one. So what you see in this room was the leftover things that were around when I shut it down.
Oh, that's sort of fun.
So I have no attachment to anything. And I look at things, I remember doing that, But if they were gone tomorrow, they just don't have any attachment.
Yeah.
The photos I took of my children growing, the photos of my friends and what I did, those photos on those hard drives are priceless to me.
Yeah, right.
Not valuable to anybody else, but I've always didn't pride myself on that, but I was surrounded by people, especially in the guitar collectible industry, where people coveted. Like I had one guy who was like in love with his 25 guitars, and he had them in a vault in his home. If it brings you happiness, I guess there's some intrinsic value there.
Sure.
I just didn't want to have. It's a worry to me. When you own something expensive or you own something flashy, it all comes with a bill.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it does come with a bill, but also, I mean, I guess one could say I have a lot of flashy things to help people.
That's okay.
I'm like, I took out an extra mortgage on my house. No.
You're an entrepreneur. Of course you did.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess in a lot of ways, I mean, it really is about, trying not to surround yourself with stuff that has value. I mean, of course we want nice things. Of course we want to live in nice houses and maybe have nice shoes or whatever it is.
Well,
nice
you're female.
phone. Well,
the shoes are a female thing,
I'm not the shoe person in my house.
Okay.
I am not the shoe person in my house. My shoes actually.
That was a bad stereotype. I apologize.
Yeah, I'm like, actually, it's really funny. My husband's a total sneakerhead, so I reap the rewards from his.
But that's the kind of stuff I'm telling you. I can't resonate with, and I respect it. Don't get me wrong. I would never talk negatively. If it brings somebody happiness, it's just something I can't understand.
Yeah.
So I've given away more stuff in my life to people, friends, people in my sphere, because I thought that would bring them value. And I think generally at that moment it did.
Yeah.
But the joy that it gave me of giving that was more than that thing ever hanging on a wall somewhere tucked away in a case,
and
right?
I also think that's like a matter of like what your personality is, right? So there are some people who are just total givers, right? So and maybe you're like this, like where you have something and somebody's just like totally coveting it and you're just like, here, take it.
Because there's no meaning to
You don't
me.
need it. Yeah.
And
like
see them
just
smiling is like,
take it.
great.
Yeah,
and
it's great. That made your day. That made my day giving that to you.
So that goes back to another weird philosophy I don't mind sharing with you, and would love your opinion. I don't believe that we truly own anything in this world. I think we're just temporary custodians of things that come into our life. And when it moves on elsewhere or gets destroyed, that's just the way things are, right?
Yeah.
Impermanent.
And I mean,
what a great word.
Impermanence.
I've been looking for that word probably my whole life to describe that, right?
Yeah, impermanence. So,
Interesting.
and that goes for everything, right? So that's not just material goods.
No.
That's like that's people, that's places, that's things, that's all the stuff. So I mean it's interesting because nothing is permanent. That made me think a few years ago, I don't know how long ago it was, but I had this like this total existential crisis where I was like, how can I be a yoga teacher? Everything's already been done. What am I actually teaching? I don't even understand. Like it sounds so stupid and silly, but it's a great example of like everything's already been done. And really what we're here to do, I think just generally speaking, maybe you're here to do something, maybe I'm here to do something, is to find whatever niche that is and to do it as best as we can. And to like,
Show's over. I can't say any better than
we're
that.
We're done at 10.
I can't even say any better than that. That's amazing.
I mean, I think we're really here to just kind of like convey a message of whatever message that is. And, like for me, I really feel like my message is really all about, you have the capacity to heal yourself. You have this amazing internal light, and it's a matter of being able to enhance that. And anything that detracts from that,
just find it, maybe.
Yeah, find it. Yeah, totally find it. But anything that detracts from it, anything that snuffs it out, needs to go. And sometimes that's easier said than done.
Yes, 1,000%, 1,000%. So, to put a capsule on Illume, what's the vision? I mean, without sharing anything proprietary, I mean, what's the overall vision?
I mean, the overall vision is that, like,
this is Illume Pittsburgh.
Yeah. The idea is that we have this as sort of like a model for moving to other cities. Nobody's really doing stuff like we're doing. I mean, there are medical spas, there are regular spas, there are wellness centers, but nobody's really kind of putting everything together. And actually, it's sort of funny because I feel like it's like the dog stop model, right? Like it's a one-stop shop, right? You can get your grooming, your boarding, your daycare. You can do all the things, in-home services. Maybe you need to pick up some food. All of that stuff. And I really feel like that's what we're doing at Illume Pittsburgh. We're really trying to like create a one-stop shop so that you can come and get all of your needs met, whatever those needs might be. And so that's kind of like one aspect of it. But the idea is that we kind of take this model and grow it to other cities. It was sort of interesting in looking for funding. People were kind of like, well, this doesn't exist. How can we fund that? That's tough. So I think, we're 6 months into the opening of the first floor with all of the modalities, like the
just
yoga
6 months.
Yeah, the yoga studio's been there for 4 years, and so it's pretty cool. Kind of like constantly refining, kind of tweaking what we're doing and how, like, the audience that we're capturing. So the idea is that we take this model and we move it to other mid-sized cities. Like, I have no interest in being in like a New York or like an LA, but I can imagine being in somewhere like a Columbus or a Cleveland or even like an Allentown, so that's kind of the idea. And then, I mean, long-term goals, 10-year vision, franchising.
She wants to build an empire, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm building an empire. And I'm just like pulling all the people I love in with me. I'm like, you're coming with me. You're coming with me.
What's great about it, though, is that is so... I love the delicate balance between saying I'm building an empire, but also having having your whole soul in line with everything.
Yeah.
And it's not about a materialistic empire. It's about... creation, right? It's creation.
It's manifestation.
That's even a better word. Taking that idea, exploiting is a terrible word, but exploitation of the idea and growing the idea, and that's what the empire means. Not flashy jewelry and the stuff you see on TV.
Yeah, I don't care about shit like that.
Right,
what I care about is like being able to provide a service. Yeah, and it really is so important to me for people to be able to feel good. And feel like they didn't even like that white noise, that tinnitus that you've got, you're like, oh, it's like constantly ringing, and like being able to give like 1 ounce of relief,
right?
Like that's like, people walk in with all this like white noise in their bodies, and then like I do one thing for them, and then they're like, oh, I didn't know that like existed.
That's the value. That's the payoff.
That's the payoff. I mean, clearly, I hope that one day there's a financial payoff. But like, I think the big thing is that like it really. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. It really is about creation. Like, I always feel like, and I, for whatever it's worth, I always feel like these ideas, they come to me and they're like divinely inspired. Like I have like this like stroke of insight where I'm like, oh, I have to do this thing, and if I don't do this thing, I don't feel like I'll be of my maximum service to people. So sound familiar, Mr. Podcaster?
Kind of why we're sitting here.
Yeah.
And I get that out of my practice as being a realtor. Shameless plug. I love what I do.
Awesome.
I think it's multifaceted. It's relationships, and then seeing the joy at the end, and working through difficult circumstances. I enjoy all that.
Yeah.
But it's only a part of who I am, and that doesn't really fulfill like the learning of what I have. Like, I'm like a sponge. I just want to absorb. But I also like to entertain, and conversations are everything. Like you mentioned, I love having conversations. Well, that's what this is.
Yeah,
we're breaking the mold, right? Because everything's in sound bites now. 20 seconds here, and I was talking to Tom McGallis, and you need to look him up too, or just go back.
I know him.
You know Tom,
the artist.
Yeah, Crazy Tom.
Yeah,
love him.
I actually met him through someone else, which it's really fascinating. When
you have chance, go back and listen to the podcast. I laughed the entire time. But we talked about, I proposed a circumstance to him because when he initially wanted to come on, or no, I invited him and he agreed. he said, Eric, I can just go, right? We can just go. I said, yeah. I said, if it's, if it's 30 minutes, if it's 3 hours, I don't care. He's like, well, people aren't going to listen to. I said, Tom, trust me.
Yeah.
If CNN came to Cleveland, that's where our studio's at now. Shame you moved to Cleveland. But if they came to him and said, Tom, we're going to feature Cleveland art and we're going to come and do a special on you, they may set up all day for like a 30-second or 20-second clip,
right?
It's just we get our information and our entertainment and our knowledge through sound bites.
Yeah.
And I want to go against that and get people to be able to relax, whether they're jogging, whether they're just watching, and enjoy a conversation and get something from it.
Yeah,
which is the essence of a podcast, anyways, right?
Totally. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, part of that creation process is like the creating of the relationships and creating strong foundations with other people, and there's like nothing more satisfying than that. I have people that I've been working with for like a decade, which is amazing to me. It's
amazing.
Right?
That's
and
amazing.
it's a power to like our relationship. And
I'm envious of that a little bit because that relationship you've had for 10 years, you've been helping them, and it's a very personal relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
It's a pretty intimate relationship.
So I mean, I've sold guitars to folks multiple times in different countries, and and the friendships have developed. But it's a guitar. It's not that. It's not that real. And I hear them get emotional when they open up these things, and we talk. And we talk about. It's great to talk about. Something they acquired 8 years ago that is still their prized possession. That's a great feeling.
Yeah.
Because it brings them joy. But to work with someone on a basis the way you're doing for a long period of time, that has to be incredibly rewarding.
It is, and it's funny because for years I was like, again, I kind of getting back to like my like training and stuff. Like I never wanted to work with humans. I was like, they're too unpredictable. Like you can't measure anything. And it's so interesting to me because at that time, like the things that I was doing were like really externally validating. Talk about like being in alignment with your like with your truth or your tenets or whatever it is. I was good at my job at CMU. It was great. I did it well. I did well when I was in grad school doing my research. But, the thing is that like, I'm a people person, and that's like really the essence of who I am. I'm like a people person. And when
was that aha moment for you that did you realize that?
I always knew that I was a people person, but this is hilarious. When I was in grad school, my landlord, who was also a photographer, he owned a photography studio on the first floor. His uncle was Howard Gardner, who's this huge psychologist, right? And the one thing that Howard said to John was like, listen, man, you are not a biologist. You are a people person. You're a creative person. You need to have that. And when he and I would I would do work for him and like, go around to other local studios and kind of check things out. And he was so great. One night we're like sitting in his studio, like having a glass of wine, and he's like, Jen, he's like, you're a people person. He's like, you are not a science person. He's like, and one day you'll figure that out, and one day you'll thank me. And I actually sent him a thank you note a few years later.
That
like
took
after
a couple years though. And you remembered though.
I mean, it was a poignant moment. I was like, yeah, you're right. But it was so interesting because like all of the like external conditioning, I don't know if you know anything about like conditioning or like Pavlovian dogs,
absolutely.
Right? Like you ring a bell, the dog salivates because you've paired the food and the bell, whatever. Anyway, so it's interesting because like for so much of my life, it was like, okay, external validation, you're like a woman in science, ding. Great, I feel amazing. Right? After a while, you're like, yeah. And then after a while, you're kind of like, wait, what am I doing? This does not feel like it's the right path for me. And I kept like pushing and trying to like go back to grad school, get my PhD, do all of this other stuff, and it just wasn't working. I was like, why isn't this working?
It wasn't who you were.
It wasn't who I am. And so it's fascinating because as soon as you get out of alignment, it's like things start to fall apart. And so you just kind of have to like really stick with those tenets and those intentions and and to know when to abandon them too. You know, so so sometimes I don't know.
That's probably the tougher part.
It is the tougher part because when shit falls apart, it's like, oh crap, what are we gonna do?
Right,
You know, like
right.
how's this gonna work?
Right.
But
It always seems to, though.
There always seems to be some evolution that happens. So yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot there, and I think that basic premise of like staying in alignment with who you truly are, it's the basis of yoga, it's the basis of meditation. It's the way I try and live my life, although, moderately successful at it, not always.
Seems like it.
Well, I mean,
Seems like it.
So
none of us are perfect.
Yeah, true. We'd be gods if we were
That's
perfect.
exactly right. Yeah. This has been great.
Yeah.
This has been really, really great. And thank you for letting me take us off course there.
Yeah.
That minimalism thing, I've always wanted to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's such a... And I do have hope for some of the millennials that I see coming up that is sometimes, and I don't like to stereotype, it's the worst thing I do, but you get trends, you feel trends, and some of those trends horrify me in terms of some of some of the impassive opinions I see, but I also see a lot of rejection of like brand name things or overly expensive items, more functionality, more pragmatic.
That's great.
Buying decisions, and I love to see that. That gives me hope. That's because I'm 53, so I lived through that 80s as a younger guy, late teens, early 20s, and I saw the materialism. Even in the 90s for a while, it was still kind of there.
The 80s were crazy with materialism, right?
Yeah.
And isn't that interesting how we were talking about pendulum swings earlier? Like, we went straight from, like, total hippie-free love, all that fun stuff, to, like, total materialism.
It's all my parents' fault. That generation.
Damn.
The baby boomers, right? They wanted everything.
Yeah.
And and then and everything does have an ebb and flow to it, but
totally.
But the are you comfortable with social media?
I love social media.
Yeah, well, it's certainly great to grow businesses.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the thing too. Like, it's a great record of life. Right?
That I love.
Like the photos that we put on there, even if it just goes straight to like Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Like,
that's the juice of it for me.
I'm not a big fan of Twitter. I get it. It does not resonate with me. And Snapchat, I'm just like, holy shit, what is this? I'm too old for this.
Well, okay. I got that too.
I don't get it. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. We send pictures.
I got some realtors that are contacting me as their mode of communication. I don't have
Snapchat.
So I go get it and I go, so you're going to send me a photo of like something wrong with this house, and then I go to look at it, then I go back to look at it, it's gone. That's not functional. But Twitter, you are giving me the reoccurring theme for pretty much every guest on here, saying that it's like the Wild West, and it's 142 characters of like just meanness all the time.
Well, I don't know about that, but like I know people who have built like empires on like Twitter.
Really?
Like they have like there's a whole like there's a sneaker Twitter community.
Oh yeah.
There's I mean there's like all of these people.
That's what they chose as their forum as opposed to Facebook
there's
or Instagram.
A lot of like professional athletes who prefer Twitter over so it's like I mean some of my baseball friends, they're on Twitter and they're like real into it. So So,
you're aware of it.
I'm aware of it.
You probably have a Twitter account.
I do have multiple Twitter accounts.
I have them too. I don't use them though. That's the thing.
But I'm such a visual person. Like I prefer Instagram. Literally, I will like sit in bed and just scroll.
Yeah.
I love Instagram.
I think it's the photos. It's just the art of it all too. It is art.
Totally.
It's societal art.
The way that somebody curates their like photos that they put on there, and then I look at mine. I'm like, oh, my pictures are my kids.
I'm kind of the same way.
I love it. Like I love it. It's like it's so great. yoga and kids, basically.
Nothing wrong with that. And I will tell you, some of the artists out there. they're able to showcase bits of their work on there, which to me is fascinating. So I've subscribed to all the hashtags of, abstract art, Pittsburgh art, and just seeing samples of the stuff that'll keep me up all night.
Oh yeah, totally.
I'm like, because I can't do that.
Like if you look up Pittsburgh skyline, you can look at the most amazing amateur photos of Pittsburgh. It's wild.
Yeah, it is wild.
It's totally cool.
All right, so how can everybody get a hold of you?
Well, they could go to our website, which is Illume, ILLUME Pittsburgh, full Pittsburgh, not PGH.com. They can look us up on Facebook, Illume Pittsburgh, Instagram, Illume Pittsburgh.
Read the reviews. That's all you need to see.
Yeah, read the reviews. So you can look us up in any of those ways. We also have a phone number if you need to get in touch with us.
Old school.
Old school. It goes straight to my cell phone.
Yeah, as a realtor, I have to pick my phone up. I don't want to always, but I have to. We're like the last.
I gotta find a new way to do that because there's zero separation.
How did that happen?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It just goes straight to my phone, and I'm like, this is great.
Well, so I reached out to everything nameless. I reached out to a potential guest for the show. I got a highly respect for her business that's growing, and on her website, she basically says, contact us via email. It's the best way to reach us. We promise to get back to you within 24 hours, maybe 12 hours. We don't use phones. Phones are for solicitation and something else. It's hysterical.
That's great, though.
Yeah, that's the first time I ever saw that. The phone number wasn't there. Which is not even texting. It wasn't there.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and they're thriving, so they're doing something right. Boy, I'd love to do that in real estate. I would love that.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work. Trust me when I tell you. Especially the texting's become such a thing now.
But messaging, texting is huge.
It's everything.
I mean, how many times have I been I'm just going to send them a text message, and I'm like, wait, why don't I just call them?
Well, what's crazy is I don't. I turned the notifications off on Facebook Messenger, so I had to keep thinking, oh my gosh, she might be trying to contact me on Facebook Messenger. I shouldn't have given you the phone number. Yeah. But it's just there's just Snapchat I did away with. If you're trying to contact me on Snapchat, it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, right.
But you just got to be aware that these are different modes of communication, and it's just you either keep up or you get left behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially, I'm 53, so believe me, I feel like I'm left behind at times. But you try to keep current.
Yeah.
But social media for you is you view as generally the positive thing.
Yeah. Business wise, absolutely.
Yeah. So you've seen growth of your business with it.
I'm totally addicted to Instagram.
Yeah.
But aside from that small addiction, it's great. And actually, I have a social media guy who helped us grow.
Tremendous.
We literally gained 6,000 followers in just a few months.
I may want to talk to you about that.
Yeah. I have a guy. He's great.
Yeah, that's right. So, and again, this is alternative media. You being a big podcast fan, you were an early adopter.
Oh my gosh, I love podcasts.
Yeah. So, but I think this is I think the future, and I love it. We're not regulated by the FCC.
Yeah.
We can drop an off-color comment if we want to. No one,
Sure.
But I think we can be more real.
Yeah.
Conversations are more in depth. We can take it any way we want.
Yeah.
And I want to personally thank you. This was really good. I learned so much.
Wait till you try this stuff,
I'm coming
Eric.
down. Yeah, and then I can report back, and you come back and see us again. We'll do this again.
Absolutely.
And you can give a full review of the things that I did and verify that I'll do them.
Yes. Done. Show number 12.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. It's my pleasure.
Great show. IllumePittsburgh.com.
Yep.
Is that right?
IllumePittsburgh.com.
Jennifer Ferris-Glick. Thank you so much. Another one in the books.